to leave any preconceived notions behind. Just in this moment, in this very moment, how do you feel? What does it feel like to be incarnated in your body in this moment? What's the pace of your heartbeat? What's the signals firing from the body feel like to the mind? What's the amount of resistance that you feel that you have in this moment, if any? What can you let go of? What can you put down? How can you become free? What is always free and never changes? What does stop mean? What does it mean to stop everything? To stop stopping as well? Just to stop. Just letting the moment present itself as you observe with no judgment, no prejudice, no wanting it to be different, no needing it to be different, but just letting it in, all the way in. Where do you meet the moment? Just meet it in all its glory. We'll use 3 breaths just to let go of any tension we may be carrying or anything that we're struggling to put down, and we'll be a bit more gentle with them today. There's no force needed, just gentle inhalation and release through the mouth. You can shake the body as you breathe. Breathe in, loosen any tension, and exhale. One more breath in, and let it go. Namaste.
Namaste.
Welcome. So, I have lots of book stuff today that we're going to talk about, which is unlike me. I normally use this as a backup, but the backup's coming in clutch today, so there's lots of different things that have had my attention, and I've been pretty scattered recently, which is fun. I've been indulging in lots of different topics, and I think they all hold the same truth, but they're all relevant to unfolding that truth. And they're all work that we can do on discovering the deeper layers of ourselves by just peeling them back. Some of them feel instant, and some of them feel like burdens that we've carried for a lifetime. So I have many different ways that it can go. So I think I'll do a bit of reading, and then today's meditation is just going to be stopping. We're just going to sit in the silence, listen to the rain, relax, see what comes up in our body and mind, and then hopefully share the things that come up, the obstacles that stop us remaining in that moment. Because most of the time, the things that knock us off course are repeated and repeated and repeated. And the only thing that we can do for each other is share our knowledge on the subject. There's nothing else that we can give each other. You come in here and I show you a way to look at something. You show me a way to look at something. And we share it. And hopefully we find something a bit deeper. And we just keep sharing until eventually we just die. Literally. And we fall into that self. And that's what it feels like. There's a death. And that seems pretty scary for the ego at first. And it tries to grab onto anything, to hold its identity, really firmly, you know. Every single time we lose an argument, we feel like there's a death. And that feeling is what engages us into a very, very direct and unkind lifestyle. Me, me, me. Mine, mine, mine. If only my, I need. If I could, I want. What about me? I'm absolutely sick of the story of me. I just want it to go away. So if you like your story, you can keep telling it, but I much prefer what's underneath the story. So we're going to start with Eli. And this book is a direct book on awakening. It's called Sudden Awakening, and I just love this passage that he wrote about grace, awakening and silence. Eli is Gangaji's husband. He's really, really not revered enough for the amount of knowledge that he has put into the spiritual community. He really was Gangaji's first devotee in being her husband, which I love, because she had an essence of truth and purity which he recognized so early that he always put her in the situation to find her truth before himself. And that is what a good support system looks like in life. To offer it to your loved ones and to the people around you first, without any concern as to whether you make it. My teacher Sharon would say, if you want something, you have to be prepared to offer it first. Otherwise, why do you deserve it? It's a hard truth, isn't it? Because if we look at our list of wants and we really asked ourselves, would I be willing to give that to someone else? It's probably a cold no. Most of the time, you know, most of us are telling a story about what we want for me, but we're not telling a story about what we're willing to do for someone else. So I love Eli because he became her first devotee and he offered his life to her, and they have got a thriving relationship because of that basis. And I think that is what relationships should be like. And it's almost like in the world at the moment, as it develops, I don't know if anyone else feels this, but there's so much emphasis on independence in a relationship now, on I should be able to do everything, and I'm the woman and I want to do this, and you're the man and you want to do this, and there's like this separation that's growing between union, not just between men and women, all couples, but it isn't. It's uniting in the truth, and it's serving the other people, and words like service only offend egos. So it's a dangerous blade if you're walking it and you're feeling like I wouldn't do that for the other person, because that is what a relationship is built on. And a relationship isn't just you and the one direct love of your life, it's you and every single person in your life. So it becomes super important to treat everyone with that respect, as if you wanted the best for every single person in this earth. And then you never know, they might want it for you. That'd be nice. Grace, awakening and silence. It is time to wake up. You have received the call. You have gathered the courage to follow it. You have devoted yourself to freedom. You have experienced tastes of your true self, but now it is time to rest. The supreme yoga of rest. If there's not a better yoga, then I don't know what it is, but the one of rest sounds pretty bloody good to me. Once you have done all that you can do, having gathered all of your intention and resources to the burdening issues of freedom, having left all concepts and knowing behind, having given up your control, contraction and offence, having faced the terror of death, and having invited everything else to come in, then your job is finished. Then you can rest. Rest is the supreme yoga. The ego misunderstands and abuses the idea of rest by thinking it is laziness or loss of focus, but rest is not lazy. Rest is clear, focused and present. Rest can be very active, but there is no stress, no effort, no distraction, no impatience, and no waiting. True rest is alert, relaxed, and open. The art of not moving is fulfillment of the supreme yoga of rest. Calling this condition of not moving is perhaps misleading, as it is hot, intense, and often emotionally painful. Many people mistake rest for comfort, but this kind of rest may not be comfortable. Rather, it allows discomforts to come and burn in the fire of freedom. Rest is the non-movement. It is the ever-alert clarity of intelligence, inviting all of the pain and all of the identification to come and burn in the fire of love. It's never been said better. It's the best way it's ever been said. In our life, we resist and it persists. There is many things that are stored inside of us, that have happened to us in our life, that we've resisted and they persist in us. And in resting, in stopping, what we're actually stopping is the conscious mind from trying to solve the problems of the unconscious and divine self. There's a portion on top of our head that talks all day. It's the voice that we all have inside of our head, and it will dwindle on problems. It will try and figure stuff out. It will take everything as resource into how to be happy, what the future's going to look like, what partner I want, what car I want, what I desire, and where my freedom is. And it just constantly churns and churns and talks, and it says things like, if I had this body, I'd be happy. If I had this, I'd be happy. I don't like the way that happened. And it just constantly cycles and cycles. Anyone else familiar with that? Yeah. And the supreme yoga of rest, or the yoga of self, is the fact that underneath the conscious mind, the unconscious mind is active. And I don't like the word unconscious mind, because this is actually the nest in which births the conscious mind. So there's this 95% of the iceberg underneath the water, and there's 5% on the tip, and that 5% is the operational ego manifested out of the 95%. Yeah? That 95% is the piece of the mind, or the self, where all problems are solved. If you ever have a really good idea, it comes from a place which doesn't feel like the conscious mind, yeah?
Definitely.
Yeah. Most of the great problems that have been solved by great scientists and people in the world will come at a place where they're not actively thinking about the problem anymore. They give up, they go for a walk, they're dreaming, they're in a state which is now not their conscious mind. And yet we still sit here with our conscious mind and try and figure it all out. There's something deeper. And that deepness within all of us offers us our own way out all the time. And we know it does because in our waking life we'll be going through and something from the depth of our unconscious or our soul will pop out of the body and revisit us again. And it's uncomfortable. And we think, I don't want to think about that right now. And then we try and solve it with the conscious mind, and we ruminate on it, and we let it flow around a little bit, and we don't get anywhere, so we keep chucking fuel on the fire, and it burns a bit, and then it goes back in the body.
So this is applied to past and future things?
Everything. Okay. The future doesn't exist. It is only the holding of the past which creates a future. The past exists in the present moment, and it is only by formulating the past that a future can exist. You can only emphasize a future by gambling on the past. Does that make sense? The past has happened, and we can use that as a reference to what the future may look like. But the future is a myth completely. The past has already happened, and it's either lodged inside of us or not. And I know personally, for me, it's lodged inside of me. I've got a lot of stuff inside of me that comes up and wants to be experienced. And the reason that I'm on this topic, and I know Jess is not here tonight, is because when we ask things like, how do I sit down and be with my suffering? I really was with that problem for a while, and I wanted to be able to articulate it in a fashion that was really helpful for someone that is still actively trying to use their conscious mind to solve a problem, which is what most of us do if we're honest. You know, a problem comes up and we stir it. But the actual essence is for the thing to be experienced from the unconscious mind. So I'll give an example of how this might look in life. If you've had a painful experience in your past, a breakup, a death, a situation where you was embarrassed or shamed, or you created embarrassment and shame around it, and you found it hard to process that rejection of the moment, then that feeling kind of made you feel numb in the moment. It kept coming up and you didn't like the way that it made you feel, and it was horrible, and you cried and you resisted and you fought it, and then it eventually got blocked out because you didn't want to experience it, and it got forced into the psyche, into the unconscious mind. And now, anytime that that has a resemblance in your modern present moment and gets triggered, and that feeling comes up, it can create all of the same emotions and feelings that were attached to it when it originated, as if it was happening now. Yeah? And that's uncomfortable. We feel it. We feel that old breakup, and our heart sinks, and we feel them things in us so deeply. They're still what I would deem sharp. Yeah? Now, everything you've ever experienced in your life will come up whenever it wants to come up, and it's not like you're ever going to get rid of them moments in your life. They don't go. But what can happen in meditation, and this is what I was trying to explain about being with it, is when you let it in and experience it, and you allow it to actually overtake your conscious mind without stewing it, and you experience it fully, and you feel that pain, and you feel that rejection, and you feel the shame that you created around it, and the other associated, maybe it was anger, not shame, or sadness, and you let it come up in your conscious, and you start to be with it. Each time you be with it, you take a little bit of the sting out of it. And you know, when you become sensitized to something, you know, your first experience of death might be really intense, and then you see it hundreds of times in your life, and then it's not so intense anymore because you're sensitized to the topic. It's the same thing with our trauma and our pain that lives within our body. We allow it to come up, and then we be with it, and then we allow it to come up, and we be with it without touching it, and eventually it will make its way up into our body, and it will pop up into your mind because of a smell or a sight that reminds you, and all of a sudden it'll just be an old story that you've experienced many times. It doesn't feel painful or offensive or sharp. And it's really about healing all of them things within us that we didn't experience fully in the past, that stop us experiencing the present moment as richly as we can. And the problem is we stored it there.
And I also think that on a surface level, probably a lot of people don't get close enough to that space, because in a sense where like you probably, a lot of people say, no, I'm fine, not holding on to anything, whereas actually when you sit down for long enough, there probably is something that you've been through or experienced.
I'm not saying that this is something you need to sit down every day and go, I need to get rid of this stuff, I'm going to now make all of my psyche come up and experience it and go into loads of pain. I'm saying there will be ample opportunities throughout each and every day where your subconscious mind chucks something up and you can just give it the experience. Just in the day. You don't know where it come from, you don't know what triggered it, but it is a way out of the stuff that you've stored within you. And what you're trying to get out of life is to a point where you can be present and anything can come into that presence and you meet it with presence, not your conscious mind.
It's just acceptance.
It's exactly acceptance. That is all it is acceptance. And acceptance is the art of being okay with the way the moment presents itself. And I know for myself, and I can only ever teach you guys from my direct experience because I have no other reference point. I'm not going to preach like I can tell you anything from anything that I haven't experienced, but I know that even tiny little things come up thousands of times a day for me. Just taking my attention, knocking me off course, and then I'll go, I'm literally trying to figure that out. There's nothing to figure out, there just is what there is. And then you can just accept it. And the minute you accept it, it's like you do this, you're squeezing it and you just go. And it just frees up. And I think self-inquiry is beautiful because we keep talking about this I, this perpetual cycle of the I that we're trying to discuss and figure out who am I. So you have your conscious mind where the ego identity exists, that's the tip of the iceberg, that's this portion up here. This is where nearly all of world's people operate. And just up here, okay, it's really hard to get anywhere deeper than that. And then you have like spiritual people and you have just some people that tend to be meandering between here and here. And then you have all of this mind, this unconscious mind, still hate the word unconscious, it's fully conscious. Behind that you have the space. Subconscious. It still means below, doesn't it?
Sub means below.
Below.
Unconscious means no conscience, which is not right. Unconscious means, whereas subconscious means underneath the consciousness.
Okay.
So it's a better word.
Yeah, I think it should be the other way around. I think conscious, the bit when we say conscious, where we are as an ego, should be the subconscious, and the conscious should be it. But it's fine. But yeah, and then there's a space in which it all exists. There's a space in which the subconscious, unconscious, and superconscious all exist. It's even bigger. It encompasses the whole paradigm. That's the place to meditate from. So you'll start off in meditation and you'll notice there's thoughts, and the thoughts might consist of an I or a story or a narrative. You're going to drop below the narrative into the unconscious, which means you're not going to touch the thoughts, and now the thoughts can arrive from somewhere deeper, and then something deeper might emerge. Nothing might emerge, that's fine too. And then when something emerges from this ineffable space, you want to then turn and try and look where that emerged from. Does that make sense? It's not easy. I'm not trying to offer you anything easy, but it is easy. It's easy if you just surrender and accept it. So we'll spend 5 minutes and we'll just let go. We'll close our eyes. It might be that for the first few minutes you want to work on your breath, and then you want to relax and you want to do anything, and you're just going to keep on churning the gears of noticing what you're doing and trying to stop. Noticing what you're doing and trying to stop. Do whatever you need to make yourself comfortable. Relax your facial muscles, relax your body. Relax your shoulders, relax your effort, And then just start to observe what comes up. If you get lost, where did you get lost from? Where did your attention get pulled into, and where was it before it got pulled into it? The least amount of effort is required here. And it may feel like you're meditating or observing your mind, or that you are watching something, but just turn that attention upon itself and try and find the meditator. Where are you meditating from? Fall deeply into the space and relax. gently. Let it go. Okay, we'll share our experience. Because I can't really read yet, so you can tell me if it was peaceful, if it was bad, or what was going on. We'll start with you, B.
Too busy today.
Too busy.
Yeah,
Thank you for
just
honesty.
with thoughts and pain and yeah, not deep. But allowing it to be there, that's the meditation for me today.
Thank you for sharing.
I think I'd kind of I tried rather than not effortless. And then you can like try to be too literal with the turning on itself point rather than surrendering and allowing.
Does anyone want to point out where the difficulty laid in the meditation there for me? You're all wise in this room. Was there anything in the information she gave there that could have been her own undoing?
The trying.
Yeah? Do you think that there was a story about an individual self that wasn't doing good enough and it was too busy and I had too much going on and I was in pain? And do you hear that there's a story there existing and there was someone perceiving that story?
But
And it was an identification with the story.
Yeah.
And there's a perceiver of the story.
There
because
is.
you wouldn't have been able to perceive the story without there being separation. It felt like I'm not doing good enough here.
I suppose because I have that comparison of times when I do feel separate and I'm observing.
But you're always separate.
Yeah, maybe.
Definitely. There just is in one moment the thought of you in pain, and in the peaceful moment no thought in pain, and when the thought of pain is going on there's a silent self-observing it, and when there's silence there's a silent self-observing it.
Yeah.
It's the identification that shifts. That's okay, it's completely good and I appreciate your sharing. It's just that you didn't do bad and it wasn't a bad meditation.
No.
There was just a different
That
feel
feels,
to it. Helen.
Similar to me.
Yeah, okay, this is good. Busy.
Busy.
Robin.
Well, I have to confess, I drifted away on a river of nothing. It was lovely.
Yeah, good. Thank you. That's delightful. I was with you. So, yeah,
Every meditation is different.
yeah, well, we're all going to go there in a minute. That's fine. I'll give something to Egan. How are you doing?
Very busy.
Busy. Yeah. Same. 3 for busy, 2 for emptiness. Come on, Thea, balance Thea. Come on, be honest. Be honest. Yeah, come on, tell us you were busy. If you were busy.
I'm overwhelmed by sadness at the moment for all sorts of reasons.
Okay.
And I think I was sitting there in a fear of letting go and embarrassing myself.
Oh, okay.
So whatever. And then there's a part where you can sit back and observe it. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to talk about it?
No.
No, okay, that's fine. That's fine. But you're free to feel it. Okay. Don't ever feel like you have to hold anything back. So, because we have 3 busies and we can aid the busyness, we'll do some practice to get rid of the busyness. We'll try again and then I'll read some more. Okay. So we have 2 options. We have mantra or pranayama. I would suggest that pranayama will be more beneficial, but it is up to you guys.
I've heard pranayama.
Okay.
I just want to
say sometimes I find it easier to observe a feeling in my body rather than a thought in my head, even though it's not in the head, it's just somewhere. So I don't know what to do with that information.
It's just helpful, isn't it? If it works for you, it's always good to share.
Well, me and Kane had that conversation the other day of how sometimes a thought can trigger an emotion, or the emotion can trigger loads of thoughts, and they're connected. They're not separate. It is all, you are all one thing, and it's just learning to navigate those in a sense where you're not defined by them. You are not those. You're experiencing them.
Yeah.
It's an experience.
Easier to think about pain. That I am not pain. I'm experiencing it. But I know that's the same with a thought. I'm not a thought. But I struggle to differentiate that I am not the thought.
You've spent a long
And
time identifying
where's
with
it
it.
coming from?
When you've spent a lifetime identifying with just this particular vessel and thought process, it's really hard to detach from it. It's hard to come unstuck. It's really getting to why we're busy. Okay, the nature of busyness in anyone's mind is to really figure out what is going on up there. Like you said, you're busy. If you was like, what was you busy about? Let's talk about the psyche, because you said I'm in pain, so there was an experience of pain, and then there's another bit of busyness. Like when we really are watching busyness, something in our awareness is telling us a story, or something is going on in our psyche that is enough to captivate our attention fully. There's something being said in that meditation.
Yeah, I suppose it starts off all good. It starts off, like labelling again, but it starts off in this sense of guiding yourself in, okay, relax, follow your breath a little bit. I felt my energy feels low here, so I was like, okay, try and breathe into your heart, lift it up higher. And then I'm like, oh, I'm trying. And then I suppose, rather than allowing the pain, like I've got tightness in my lower back, and then that's got a story to it of, oh, well, that's because I've been on my feet all day at work and I've been picking up this, that and the other. And then rather than meeting that and allowing maybe some of the frustrations I've had to come up, I resisted it and I'm pushing it away. Or the sadness or pain, you're pushing it, you don't want to feel it because it's
invasive.
It's not like your ideal
Whose ideal?
of when you think, well, I want, is that coming back to I want happiness, whereas actually I need to be the peace behind it all.
Right.
But then that's again trying to control.
I suppose that's
To
the
mind
ego
that.
again. That I want.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's easy, and it's so easy for us on the outside to sit here and look at that. It's when you're in it, it's to recognise that this voice has been going on your whole life as a offering out of your suffering. You know, if I didn't have that back pain, oh, I'm too busy, my energy's low, this is going on, that's going on, oh my god.
Whereas actually, if I'm not offended by it,
it's all bullshit.
And I'm like, actually, all of that stuff can be here.
It's all a story that's being told that doesn't contribute to your well-being. You're completely full of love at every moment. It's the stopping, and the sincere stopping. And I'm sure if you two shared the same thing, or if you, when you're meditating, if you try and listen to the story that's being told, you can really call the bluff on it. Busyness is just busyness. There's no separation of busyness from inside or outside. Everything that wants your attention is asking for your attention, but it isn't asking you to do anything with it. Okay, so there's back pain. If there's no narrative, there's just a sensation.
Yeah, it is. Just
Without
a
any
sensation.
story, there's just a sensation. You wouldn't even be able to label it as back pain.
No.
And that's a handy tool to have in your arsenal, to be able to go, there's pain and there's a place that's experiencing it, but it's not me. Because as you get older, pains can become more prevalent as the body fails, and it's a good lesson to learn. So. Okay, we'll do some pranayama. Okay, So we're going to do something to create a little spike of norepinephrine in our mind, okay, which is adrenaline. And it's going to be a longer retention today. Robin, if you need to cough when we're doing this, cough, mate, okay? If it triggers your lungs, don't feel offended or worried. And if any of you, that's absolutely fine. But I know you've had an issue with coughing, don't worry about it. So what we're going to do is it's like Bhastrika, okay? But it's not as intense. We breathe in through the nose. About that pace, we do 25 breaths. Because it's not as big as Bhastrika, you won't get as high. And then we hold the breath. We hold the breath for about 30 seconds, maybe longer, and then we release. And then we breathe in and hold the breath for 10 seconds. We do that whole cycle 3 times. Okay? That's going to spike the mind and body with adrenaline. That's going to open the veins, and the first thing that's going to happen is it's going to, what was it called? If you can remember the piece of the brain, I'll give you. Locus
ceruleus.
Close, okay. Yeah, I can't remember it either, but that was as close as we're going to get today, okay? The actual definition of it is called the blue spot, the locus, and the word begins with S, it means blue.
Ceruleus.
Yeah. And it's a portion of our brain that releases epinephrine, and when we're dreaming, it turns off, and what they call it is like, you know when you have RAM on a computer. Does anyone know what that means? Okay, so
like memory.
Your memory that is stuff that's being stored in the present day isn't in long-term memory yet. Experiences have happened and they're stored in what's like the RAM of your mind, okay? And when we go to bed, this section of our brain is the piece that turns off, stops the release of adrenaline, and it enables our brain to start deleting the irrelevant information, let's say. And when we have things or tendencies that have lived with us, in us, that we've released, we fire too much activity in this section of our brain, and it keeps making us relive it. That's why a lot of the time we process traumatic things in our life through our dreams, because it's our mind trying to offload the experience in a way where we can actually handle it, because we've proved time and time again that we're not able to handle it in our waking day. And when we get a build-up of these experiences and we're not offloading our RAM, we end up with a busy mind, and then we end up in a place where we keep reliving the same bloody thoughts that come up day in, day out. So what we can do is take this process that happens in our sleep and stimulate it with our breath, and then what we want to do is afterwards calm the body and let the mind speak. This is the important bit, okay? This is, don't try to stop your mind speaking. And when we let it speak, you're going to notice that it probably won't speak, okay? But there's a difference in the surrender to it. So we'll do 3 rounds, 25 breaths. I'm going to count on my hand, and we'll do the retention, hold, and then all we're going to do is paliloma. Inhale for 4, hold, exhale for 5, until we feel like we're calming down again. And then I'm going to say, allow your mind to speak and just observe it. And we're going to see if there's a difference in the quality of our thinking mind. Yeah? Don't worry about it. Just a bird. Okay. Choose your position. It doesn't have to be fancy. It can just be comfortable. Cyclic breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth, big breaths, starting with an inhale, let's go. Big breath in and hold. release. Have a big breath in and a gentle hold. And release. 3 normal breaths, just breathe in at your own pace. That stimulation you're feeling in your body, the tingling, that is the release of adrenaline throughout the body. Okay, and the next time you exhale, we'll begin again. 25 breaths. And inhale. And exhale. Inhale and hold. And release. Long inhale. Relax and hold. Couple of normal breaths, about 7 or 8 this time. Just notice the sensations, notice the alertness of the body, the aliveness. Noticing the uncertainties in the mind, it feels different now. Take 3 more breaths. And then we'll do 1 more round and we'll completely calm the nervous system afterwards. We're stimulating at the moment, then we'll calm. Last breath and then ready for an inhale. And inhale. And inhale and hold. Keep holding. Keep holding. And release. Smooth inhale. Hold and relax. We're going to go straight into Paliloma after this exhale. So exhale for 5 when I say, and then breathe with me. Exhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. Relax your body. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Retain. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold. And exhale. Now making no pause between the inhales and exhales, just start to breathe in and out, and in and out. Smooth, no pauses in and out. Find your own rhythm and just follow it in and out, making it quieter and quieter until your body's natural rhythm of breath takes over, until you're not thinking about breathing in or out, but your body is just breathing. And then I want you to just gently start to drop your attention into the centre of your chest, to your heart. And I want you just to imagine that your awareness is now located at the centre. And that you're just relaxing there. And I want you to just give yourself permission to think, but in the giving yourself permission to think, I want you just to watch for the next thought to arrive. Quite vigilantly, just waiting for it to make its appearance in your mind. So just sit on the fence of the heart and wait for the next thought. When it comes in, don't touch it. If it comes in, don't touch it. Just watch it pass like a cloud in the sky. Complete allowance. Just relax and be vigilant. If it captivates your attention and pulls you in, just let it go. Revert back to watching and waiting. Just allowing it to come up. You're giving it permission to come into the space of your heart. in. Just let it go. You can stretch, you can move. I'm going to ask you how it was in a second. I'm just going to read this before I forget. There was a lot that I had to read tonight and I didn't, which is really unusual that I said I was going to read. I'm kind of annoyed at myself. This is a Stoic book on daily meditations, and I found a lot of joy in this. It's called Don't Abandon Yourself or Others. As you move forward along the path of reason, people will stand in your way. They will never be able to keep you from doing what's sound, so don't let them knock on your goodwill. Keep a steady watch on both fronts, not only for the well-based judgment and actions, but also for the gentleness of those who would obstruct our path or create other difficulties. For getting angry is also a weakness of identification, just as much as abandoning the task or surrendering under panic. For doing equal either is equal desolation, the one by shrinking back, and by the other estrangement from the family and friend. Remember that if they're in your way, then you're in your own way. I think I like the last sentence the most. If someone or something is occupying your mind, it is your mind. It is not someone or something. You are occupying them in your mind. And we recreate these people in our mind and we say, they're the reason that this is happening. We are literally recreating them in our mind and then blaming them. It's just good to know if something or someone is in your way, then you are actually in your own way. Okay, was it the same for you? Or was it different?
It was more profound in the sense of the realisation that what we do in this room is one of the most amazing and challenging things for a human to do, is to sit with themselves and be with themselves in all circumstances, because it's not always this and it's not always peaceful. So to be able to sit with yourself through it all is amazing. And that's my
That's a nice realisation.
Yeah.
Helen?
I think before, first time around I was trying to, and there I don't know if I said it, I'm trying to think about who is observing the thought, where does the thought come from, and that I'm not the thought and who's observing it. And I was probably getting frustrated with myself because I couldn't work it out. But this time I was just allowing the thought, and a few things came up and I just watched it and let it go where it wanted to go. And then that turned into sensation, and I find that easier to observe than the thought. So it was, I felt like I was on a different planet by the end of it, which was really nice.
Thank you. Robin, how did you find that?
I had a wonderful time. Could quite happily have sat there for longer. But no, it was very, very pleasant. It was listening to the music of the spheres. Lovely.
It's nice.
It's the best song of the universe. Thank you. How was you, Tegan? Did it change?
A lot better. I was a lot peaceful this time.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think the breathing was the thing that kicked. It was much. It was a full experience. It was a sort of. It was. I don't know. Maybe it's the breathing, but it feels as if the sadness had been pushed away, and I was back where I know I can be. And the reminder that you're absolutely right. It's a lot of the things that get in the way are not to do with the essence of you. It's to do with what you let happen. That you take on. That's not your responsibility. And the knowledge that you can always find that space.
It's kind of reassuring.
Yeah.
Especially in tough times. I was most concerned for you during that because sometimes doing intense breath work when you are sitting with something heavy, it can actually
Intensify.
Pushed it away.
It's good.
That's nice.
It's good. It's nice to find that space. And I think it's a very good point to touch on just how much we take on the world's suffering. We have enough going on our own. But there was a wonderful thing that Dr. Paul Conti said, and I wish that I could play it because I am going to paraphrase how he said it, and it won't do him justice. But he wrote this book. I haven't got it on me. He wrote a book about trauma as a pandemic, and he says this line in it because he was writing this or about to publish it as COVID struck. And he said, when a virus attacks the world, we have to close ourselves off. We have to wait for a vaccine. We have to isolate and create separation. But he says with trauma or pain, and trauma is anything emotionally lodged in our body. The word trauma sounds so intense, but it can just be someone laughing at us that we didn't process very well. That's a trauma, it's an impression, it left an impression. He says, with trauma, he says, we have to actually become open until we ourselves become the vaccine. And I like that because what that means is when we're in a world and people are offloading, we have a tendency to get to a point where we start to close down and shut down. I can't take on one more thing because I'm going to crack, because we feel like we're becoming full, but what we're actually doing is we're closing. And we're putting up barriers to our normal self, this infinite space that we have. And we're stopping ourselves from being able to experience our total self because now there's these walls in place that I can't take any more from you, I can't deal with you, I don't want to hear sadness, I don't want to do and we literally confine ourselves in a shell thinking that we're protecting ourselves, when actually we're trapping our ego in a box. And what we need to do is quite the opposite, is we need to become so open, so much the self, that all of this stuff is just passing through us like we're translucent. So that when you're in these scenarios and we're in these circumstances where people say things that seemingly seem offensive or hurtful, that they come in and we have the ability to experience them fully without lodging them in us, because we can be the end of that cycle. They can finish with us. Yeah, it's hard, right? I always say it's the task of a lifetime, okay? But when we talk about karma here, when we say we push the wheel of karma and we engage, people's karma is constantly coming to fruition, and they push their karma onto you, and then you push it onto someone else, and that is exactly how trauma can work. It's like a virus. If someone comes to me today and they've had a negative experience in their life, and then they offload their negativity onto me, and I've done this to be 1,000,000 times, and I'll probably do it 1,000,000 more, and then I have the negativity in me, and then I come home and I fucking blah, 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 blah. I've had a bad day, and then she takes it, and then she goes to work, and then she's blah, 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 blah. And this thing is perpetually influxing like a virus around the world, and it's got to the point where it's so strong that the world is in a kind of lost space. The karmic cycle can only end with you. The trauma cycle can end with you. You fix the world by recognising who you are. You don't need to do any external work, because you cannot tell me that if every single person worked on themselves on recognising their own true nature, that the world wouldn't flourish into heaven in a day. In a day. Because no one could do anything bad from that space. There's nothing to do from that space, just love. Right? It's the freedom. So it's one of my hardest lessons is when I'm in something and I feel my body traumatizing and I feel the negative emotions, and the closure is to embrace that feeling with wholeheartedness and to try to not shut down.
And to be grateful for it. And that sounds funny, but in one way, it's a joy in itself to feel all of those emotions.
I agree. I think
Because
that
how boring and sad it would be to feel none of that.
it gives you a great reference point for the love that you can experience. Without it, I don't think the love would have quite the depth that it does. It gives you the range. It's like, I can relate this just to music. The further away from the home note you go, the more tension it creates. Without the reference of the second note, there would be no emotion in music. And the further the note travels away, it creates all of this pain, and then you resolve it by coming back home. And that is where we are. We're always home, but these things around us create some tension that makes us feel like we're away, and when it resolves, we're like, oh yeah, I forgot how good it is just to be blissed out in the self. It's the trick. And we play it on ourselves, and it's beautiful. We wouldn't be incarnated as humans if we wasn't meant to feel sadness, depression, anger. Hey, they're all on the scale. Peace exists in all of them. That's the game. Sit down and be sad, and holy shit, there's still peace there. Oh, isn't that delightful? That hasn't wavered. The sadness has. You know. And tomorrow we do it all again.
It changes, yeah, it all comes and goes.
It all comes and goes. And that coming and going, if you can recognise the stability of the self, because I say this each week, and I want it to come more and more embedded in yourselves, is there's a place where you're looking at me and I'm looking at you, and you could say, if I said like, hello, are you in there? You'd say, yeah, I'm in there, because you're in there, right? No one's not in there. You all recognise who you are. You're in there, yeah? Like if I said, are you in there? You know that it's you in there. It's not me in there, it's you in there, yeah? That's got to be certified that if anyone ever says, is that you? You're like, yeah, this is me, you know? We know who that is, okay? That hasn't changed, ever. Nothing's ever changed that. That you that's in there. So that is the reference point for all of the stuff that's changing. When you go, oh, I'm sad today. No, there is sadness. Hold on a minute. The person that's experiencing the sadness, is there any change? Absolutely not. Ever. Never changes. And it is the most freeing thing to experience. It is what I explained. I experienced this winter when I went into a bit of a depressive hole, that I found that the real truth of that meaning in the darkest mind frame. I was like, oh, it's fine. It doesn't fucking matter what goes on out here. It doesn't matter what goes on in there. The person watching it doesn't change. It's the same for everyone. I'm yet to meet someone that isn't in there. That's freedom. Go and be that person. That's it. That's it. I have nothing else to give. I had a whole lot of shit to read, okay, and I'm sad about it because we have to get back to this, but next week. We're going to learn how the world is created in our consciousness, how the world manifests from Sri Ramana's perspective into creation, and whether creation actually exists. It's a great topic, because it's one of them places what the conscious mind is trying to always figure out. How did we get here? Where did we come from? What did we do? All of this stuff. And he nips it in the bud. A couple of paragraphs, and it's wicked. So that's where you got in stock if you come back next week. Thank you so much for sharing time and space, and I'm sorry that it's not always easy, but it is exactly what it's meant to be.
Thank you.
You're welcome.